All right, good morning, guys. Welcome. We've got another episode here of Coffee with Coach Patrick. Today, I'm joined by national team member and University of Calgary swimmer Peter Brothers. Peter, how you doing this morning?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, man. I'm doing good. Like I said, the sun is shining. It's a good day. Be nice to be outside a little bit more, I imagine, than being inside. But yeah, I can't complain
Yeah.
too much. You guys getting some decent weather?
Yeah, it's been good. We had good weather over the weekend, but I think the weather is gonna take a turn for some rain and some more cold. But yeah, it's been good the last 3 or 4 weeks.
How warm is it there?
Today I think it's like ten degrees, something like that. It's not too cold, but it's been like the weekend was like 25, 26, so
Nice.
even got a little bit of a burn. Uh, for me, it's not uncommon, but yeah, it was good weather.
Good, good. Well, I want to thank you for doing this. I appreciate you coming on and talking and sharing your story. Um, so the first thing I want to ask you, man, I just want to get right into it. Like, how are you doing with the whole kind of lockdown COVID thing? I think we're on week 9, if I can keep track of it all. But how are you doing with everything? How are you well? Or your family, your friends, everybody in your life? How's everybody doing for you?
Yeah, everybody is good that I'm in contact with. Just obviously maintaining distance from each other is a hard thing to do, but yeah, it's been getting progressively better. You kind of find a new routine, I guess. You adapt to what the situation is, and yeah, I'm. It's bittersweet, I guess, having some things to do that are different from my regular routine, but I definitely miss the pool, obviously, and seeing my friends and as much as like I can and stuff. So, uh, but yeah, everyone's been good and pretty fortunate to be. I don't know where we are, I guess, right now, and yeah. So, how are you? How's your family? How's your baby girl?
We're good. She's good, man. I think she's appreciating daddy time. Um,
Yeah,
so we hang out a lot. I was joking. They say we do a lot of dress up dance parties, and she likes to dress her daddy up like a fool, so it's fun.
nice.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's nice. Like I've got to spend some cool time with her, and she's just about to be. I think next week she'll be 15 months, so she's at that fun age where every day she learns something new, and
Yeah. So
yeah,
she's like a sponge,
oh,
soaks
absolutely.
everything up. Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
but she's always like looking at things and sizing it up, and it's like, oh man, I'm in trouble. Like when she gets a bit more mobile, I'm in a world of hurt here.
Yeah.
But it's fun. Like I spend so much time with older teenagers or young adults, and it's kind of refreshing to hang out with a toddler and just do silly stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get, but yeah, I'm
No,
sure it's a lot of fun.
it's a lot of fun. Every day is a mystery. Some days are not so much fun, but she's at a good age right now. So no,
Yeah.
we're all good here. So I wanted to ask you, you're in Calgary right now,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
are all your roommates? Do you have a couple of roommates? Is everybody still in Calgary with you, or what's that set up right now?
Yeah, Tristan hasn't gone anywhere. He wasn't gonna go home to Toronto until everything kind of settles down because I mean he's either stuck here, stuck in his house with his parents. So and Anders has gone back to see his family just a couple of times since this all started. So everyone's mostly here, just hanging out, the three of us, and yeah, it's been pretty good.
And for you, family is your parents are still in Victoria, right?
They actually are in Canmore now, so they're
Oh,
not
okay.
too far away. I can go see them when I get time to, and
That's nice then. Um, so I guess you don't really have any. Your family's not. You don't have any family in Victoria then anymore, right? Everyone's kind of moved away.
yeah, yeah. My brother's in Montreal, and my parents are kind of split between, but their official residence is in Canmore.
Okay. Um, so with your training right now, like how are you? What are you doing to stay active, fit, keep training? I mean, as a guy who swims distance, 4, 8, 15, um, keeping your aerobic fitness is up. Like, are you a runner? Are you a biker? Are you neither? But just holding on for dear life, trying to do those other things. Like how's that for you
Uh,
with the training?
I am definitely not a runner. When this all first started, Anders and Tristan are decent runners, and they brought me out on a few runs. I think I maybe did like 3 runs, a total like 15, 16K, and my body was just telling me no. But once I kind of got set up, I got set up with a bike, which I'm a lot more familiar with growing up in Canmore. Being on a bike is like kind of second nature to me. So I've been doing a lot of that. And then as well, recently our neighbors actually got one of the endless pools, which has been a blessing because I can actually get back in the water and start to get a little bit more feel and use those muscles that you don't use in anything else besides swimming. The shoulders, the lats, the like when I first got in, I guess a week and a bit ago now, I could tell how 6 weeks did a number on my arm muscles. Like it's a completely different movement, but yeah, I'm glad to have tried a few other things like biking, and I'm really enjoying the biking. And I actually got some roller skis as well. But that has been an absolute death trap because I don't know how people do that because there's no way to stop. You just rip down a hill and you hope that nobody's in your way. And if you hit a bump, you might go flying. And yeah, so I tried those out a couple of times, but I think I'm going to stay away from those.
Yeah, you got to be careful with those. It's like you hit one little pebble and it's like a yard sale, right? You're just all over the place.
Oh yeah.
I imagine that would be a hard call to Mike. It's like, hey, Mike, so I got injured doing roller skiing. He'd probably lose his mind on that one, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, not good. Try to get some upper body stuff going on, but yeah, again, like it's not even the same movement as swimming, so it's not really a point.
It's interesting when you said that. So you've got the endless pool, like the neighbors in Calgary just happen to get one. Are they related to swimming at all, or it just happened to be the
Yeah,
best thing ever?
they're the director of the University of Calgary Swim Club. So
Oh,
they got it for their kids. And yeah, they just happened to move 2 doors down from us earlier this year in January. And so they've been very like kind to us about using it. And yeah, it's been a good setup.
that's awesome, man. That's really, really fortunate. It's funny. You made me think of something, and I know you're a massive basketball fan, right?
Yeah, I wasn't as much of a basketball fan as I was like football and hockey moving to Calgary, but as I've been hanging out with a lot of the guys, it's kind of switched over more and more and more towards basketball. But yeah, yeah, I really enjoy it.
So where I'm going with this question is because you made me think of something. You've watched The Last Dance with the Jordan doc?
Yes, yeah, I just finished it last night.
Yeah, it's so good. I always tell people I actually grew up like that's who I grew up watching when I was a teenager. Like we had WGN back home, so it was like every Bulls game. So I was spoiled in the '90s. I watched every Bulls game, all those in real time. So it
Yeah,
was
that's awesome.
crazy. But the big thing I wanted to ask you from that because you said something that's like it's different muscles and how much did you relate to the part? I'm trying to remember the episode. I don't know if it's episode 5 or 6 or whatever it is, but where he switches and goes to baseball. And
Yeah, yeah,
as I had to train my body and it was different muscles. And then he came back to basketball. And that first year in 95, when they were in the playoffs, and he's like, I just didn't have the stamina with the muscles. Like you must have related to that part in the documentary with being out of the pool, even though you're training, it's different, right?
yeah. Like showing that, I don't know. I like the his trainer and he like how knowledgeable he was, just being like, Michael, like you've built your body to be a basketball player. We're gonna have to change everything to get you ready for baseball. And yeah, so it's like in terms of like swimming and doing other stuff, it's good to you can obviously work your aerobic. For me, my aerobic capacity and like leg strength has been an issue for me the last little bit. So working biking has been, I think, beneficial for me. But again, like there's not much that replicates that movement of catching over and over again. Like you're not going to get that doing anything else that I can think of right now anyway. So it's yeah, it's going to be a shock to I think a lot of people, especially in Canada, to go back to the pool and slowly like build back into making that swimming body like Michael had to do, making that basketball body again. So or making that baseball body in the first transition when he retired. So yeah, it was really cool to see that. But I mean, he was able to do it, right? Like, it's just hard work, and it's just perseverance to do what you want to do. He made no, like, he sacrificed everything to do what he wanted to do, which is really inspiring, motivating to a lot of people. And I think that's, like, obviously you said you were growing up watching his games. Like, that's why he was so good, so dominant, because he just, there's nothing in his way to get to where he wanted to go.
It was crazy to watch just that. And that was the role model that we had, right? Like for me being a big basketball fan, that was my role model growing up, like my favorite athlete. So that's why I always find it funny when people talk about the GOAT conversation. It's like, please, all right. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it depends on what era or generation you grew up in, right?
Mhm.
No, it's interesting because you get back to it and you're going to feel the water. Like the water will feel fine, but the problem is you're only going to feel absolutely great for about 25, 50 meters. And then the muscles will get tired, but you can kind of build back. And that's why I wanted to ask you, like, have you had any layoffs in your career where you've been out of the water for a period of time, whether it be because of an injury or taking a bit of a break or anything like that, that would replicate this situation where you're out of the water now for a little bit of time?
No, this is like definitely the longest span of time that I've been out of the water, like indefinitely. I've had a couple of injuries that have nagged on for a couple months, but I mean, you just, like, you got to work through it sometimes, you know. I had a bad, like, injury to my rib that kind of persisted for a couple of years, and kind of had to deal with it. But some months I would have to go just kicking sets. I couldn't do any hard swimming. So, like, I could go through the motions, but as soon as I put any kind of effort into it, it was I was hurting myself more than I was able to recover. So um, yeah, I've had a lot of setbacks in my career, but nothing where I've been out of the water completely for this long.
Yeah, I think that's the tough part for some of the athletes like yourself that haven't been out of the water. When some have, like, I know I've had a couple of guys that you're friends with that you've competed against and with on Team Canada, but having them had layoffs and working them back, and it's just about that mental patience, right? I think the hardest thing people are going to struggle with is when you get back to that first stretch of the water and it feels awkward, it feels weird, and it's like, just bide your time. It'll come back. It just takes a bit of time. Um,
Yeah,
but not getting too, let's be real, swimmers not getting too freaked out or paranoid that, oh my God, it's all gone. Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to swim. Like, you're going to be okay. You just have
yeah,
to give it that little bit of time to get back.
yeah.
So in that sense, then, well, I guess how old were you when you first started, like your first year of competitive swimming?
My first year of competitive swimming, well, I started off in summer club in Canmore. So I started with the Canmore Coho when I was 8.
Okay.
My parents put my brother into swimming, and they didn't want to have to, if he was going to swimming, I was going to swimming, kind of thing. Like, they didn't want to have to drive me around to some other place. So, even though I did a lot of sports as a kid, but my brother really, really loved swimming, and I was just kind of like, okay, I guess.
So like if you started when you were 8 with summer swimming, kind of getting going, I love that because that's how I ended up around the pool with my older sisters. So I totally relate to that. Um, would you say that this has almost been the longest break now, or getting close to the longest break you've had from swimming then since you started when you were a kid?
Yeah, because I mean, the summer swimming, you go from June to August, or May to August, something like that. And so you get the in between time off, which is a long time. But since I started Winter Club when I was 10, yeah, it's been pretty much the longest break that I can remember, at least. Like, my summers have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter every single year that I've been a swimmer. So some years I would, like, especially in the junior teams, when you finish September 1st or August 31st, and you got to go back to school in 2 days, and then you got to get back in the water because everybody, your whole group is back in the water, and you only take a week, maybe 10 days off, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely been the longest time out of the water, but looking forward to getting back in for sure.
No, it's funny. A lot of people don't realize that with the junior teams, that you go right till the end of the summer. And I'll never forget, it was 2018. We went to, or was it 18? Yeah. yeah, 2018, we went to the Junior Worlds for open water with Raven, right? And
Yeah.
what was so weird about that is we're at Junior Worlds for open water, finishing up our 17-18 season, but it was a week, or no, sorry, our group back home was 2 weeks in to the 18-19 season. So like,
Yeah.
so you don't really get a break because you're finishing your season when other people have started their next season. Um,
Yeah.
so it is a long stretch without being in the water and stuff like that right now compared to what you've done with those junior teams not getting breaks. So I wanted to ask you, kind of in relation to that, is how, because you think about, you've been swimming for your entire life, right? And your career has been going, and you've been swimming on Team Canada since, I mean, my goodness, you've been going to junior nationals at least for the last 10, 11, 12 years, and then representing Team Canada since as far back as maybe NACC's at 2011. So you've been, or 2012, you've been doing this for a heck of a long time. Having been where you're at and where you are in your career, do you miss swimming in a way that you might not have been sure you would have missed it this much? Or do you have a different look at it having this forced time away from the pool? Because it kind of puts things into perspective, right? I'm just wondering how
Yeah.
you're feeling with all that.
Yeah, it definitely puts things into perspective. We're so fortunate to be student athletes. I know like people are eager to move on with their life and get a career and figure out what they want to do, but like you gotta be present in what you're doing, and that's kind of given a whole new meaning. Uh, Even like this past year, because I was so motivated into coming into this trials, like it was on my mind every minute of every day. I was preparing for it the best that I could. And I didn't get the opportunity to kind of show where I was at the end of the training cycle. But moving into next year, like, and having to do this break, it's like driving me even more. And like, I miss having the social time in the water. I miss doing those grueling sets. I miss pushing myself to places that I didn't think I'd be able to push, right? Every set you can get better, every week you can get better. And I miss having like I miss a lot of things about swimming that it's actually good to even just voice it right now, like having someone ask you that, like, what do you miss about the thing that you do the most? It's like you get out, you realize, like, hey, I'm this is like something I really, really like to do, something I really enjoy doing. It's it's put everything in, yeah, I guess, into a new perspective. And yeah, that's why I'm really like excited to go back.
So I guess that first day back, people always ask me like, what's the first day back going to look like for you? I imagine it's going to be the most eager you've been to get in the water in quite some time and just a big old smile on your face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's, I mean, you gotta plan, right? And but at the same time, like, yeah, be present, enjoy it. Like, you never know if you're not going to get back in the water, right? So something could happen or whatever, and yeah, you just got to take it one day at a time and one work at a time. And uh, yeah, like that's like right now, like just leading into it, like you got to take it one day at a time. You can't try to worry about things you can't control. And uh, but when that time comes to get back in the water, I know I'll be excited for sure.
Absolutely. Well, so I want to kind of go back in time and go back to your career, but I do have one question that I'm curious about, and they're kind of related. So you talked about being 8 years old with summer swim and getting into it and all that in Canmore. But you also mentioned like you're athletic, you did other sports. So I guess the question is, what other sports did you do growing up, or did you participate in at various points in your life? And has any of that played a factor in helping you with figuring out different ways to train now that you're not able to swim, or well, before you were able to kind of swim down this pool?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, growing up in Canmore, I was basically like, I learned to walk, and then I learned to skate, I learned to ski, I learned to bike, and and then my parents threw me in kind of every single sport that you can possibly imagine, which is really, really fortunate. Uh, biking and biking and cross country skiing and hockey were kind of my biggest ones. I played hockey all the way up until grade 11, actually.
Wow.
So like I learned a lot from not nearly at a high level, but I really like to play. I kind of do like 2 practices during the week and then 2 games on the weekend kind of thing for a span of 5 or 6 months. And but yeah, I learned to. I mean, you kind of like build a different relationship with your teammates than you do in an individual sport like swimming. Hockey, you have to kind of depend on your teammates during the actual competition, game time, and but also like like having a good time with them, and I really like the social aspect of it. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to be in everything. I played basketball, baseball, gymnastics, even.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've been doing everything, which has helped me a lot in translating now towards land activities. I mean, obviously that was when I was a lot younger, but some of those skills you never really lose, like the biking, the cross country skiing. I can't go skate right now because it's too nice and there's no like indoor rinks open. But yeah, it gets your mind off, I guess, the progression in swimming, and you're just like just working out, which is a weird thing for people who have such a regimented practice schedule towards swimming. But like now we're working out to, and we're not going to do something we don't like, right? It's not worth it. So yeah, it's been really helpful for me to just go and bike and go and cross country ski or roller ski or that kind of thing. So
Well, it kind of, you made me think of a couple of things. So one, whenever you're younger, like learning all those sports, gymnastics, all that, it might not be relevant sport for right now, but it's the physical literacy and learning and coordination that you develop from those sports. Like the stuff that you talked about with like cross country skiing or skating, there's a lot of coordination that goes into that I think definitely benefits your just overall athleticism for sure. Um,
yeah.
the other thing that I found interesting, and I'm curious what you think about this, is that by playing team sports and playing the different dynamics, did you find that you had more of a desire to kind of push towards an individual sport? Because like I did the same thing. I swam and I did team sports, but for me, I was drawn to the individual sport because I knew that I was maybe a bad teammate for team sports when I was younger because I hated relying on people. Um, maybe I grew up watching Jordan too much. Um, but individual sports, I always loved the fact that I was in control of everything. Did you feel that way, that it was a benefit to you to like be in control of your outcome as an individual versus, maybe some of the team sports?
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, I mean, like in team sports, you can have one individual maybe take over a little bit, like Jordan right there, baseball jersey. But I got, I mean, yeah, I never played hockey or team sports at, say, a high enough level to, I didn't have that same competitiveness, I guess. I played more for enjoyment and fun. Like, obviously, I didn't like losing, but uh, at the end of the day, I was a middle school, high school kid playing hockey that just really liked to skate, and I had a good group of friends that were hockey players, and but yeah, like I think because you're able to take ownership of what you do in an individual sport a little bit more than I can imagine in a team sport that's at the national, international level. It's a little bit easier, I guess, to have like put that on yourself and then not have to worry about your teammates and having to depend on them and that kind of stuff. But if you get a good group of guys that can build towards a goal and build towards a uh, like improve and get better, like that's that's really what we do as swimmers as well. Like uh, U Sports is one of the only meets that I've been to that it's not really about your individual swim; it's about the whole team, and you're relying on your teammates to put their uh, the whole year's work towards a goal of getting as many points as you can. It doesn't matter really if we end up with like a few guys getting gold medals, silver medals, bronze medals. It's about like the whole group beating that guy next to them, getting in, squeaking into that A final, squeaking into the C final. Like, so it's kind of cool that way to translate, I guess, more of a team atmosphere into swimming. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have one person on board, the whole thing goes out the window for team sports. So um, yeah, it's a different dynamic, but yeah, I mean, that's probably why I chose to do individual sports, just because I knew the work that I put in was gonna make me a better swimmer, and I didn't really have to. Like, the pool doesn't lie, so you're not
That's it.
gonna you're not gonna have like a teammate affecting what you're doing. You can't blame it on anybody else. So yeah,
So I always say I love about swimming is that you have your lane, you've got your block, you've got your water, and you got to touch the wall, and the time's got to be there, right? It's about as simple and as pure for sport as you can have. Um,
yeah,
the other thing too that you touch on, like you cannot get there without great teammates in swimming, but when you get up and compete, it's on you. But you have that environment, that training environment.
yeah,
And I'm going to touch on that because you've had some phenomenal teammates and have some phenomenal teammates right now. But now I want to take it all the way back. I just want to go right back. Okay, like walk me through your little boy Peter starting summer swim. You went into competitive swimming. Obviously, you and your brother were coming along, and you were following along your brother because you guys were siblings, and it was easier on mom and dad. But it came pretty quickly to you. So you had your first few years of swimming. You swam in Alberta, and then at that time, though, it started right away. Like by the time you were 11, you were the top in the country for your age and number of events. You were going to junior nationals. I think at the time it was 13 and under for boys, but you were there as a 12-year-old and competing and doing really well. And then by the time you were 13, you're winning events and you're doing all that stuff. So it came pretty quick. But I'm just curious for you, when did you kind of feel like, hey, I'm pretty good at this? And at the same time, your brother was also really good at it. So you were following along him. Like, how was that process growing up in Alberta before you moved to Victoria, and just, being good young, and how that was, or when did you figure out you were good, and then also following along with your brother?
yeah. So I mean, growing up in Canmore, in swimming in Canmore, I didn't know how good I was. I was fortunate enough to have coaches that knew a little bit better how good I was, and they were able to push me and develop me. And I mean, at that point in time, you're just doing it for fun. Like, you're a kid, and you're like, you're basically hanging out with your friends and playing in the water. But I mean, like, my coaches obviously helped me develop skills that were gonna make me a better swimmer in the long run. And yeah, in Canmore, like, it's kind of hard to go back that far, but I remember just like looking up to the older kids in my group, because in Canmore you have everyone from 18 years old to 10 years old that I was. So um, just looking up to those guys and trying to like be with them because you looked up to them, right? So, and then when I moved to Victoria, I still don't even think I knew how good I was. I had a really good coach, Cindy, maybe. She kind of pushed me again further than I thought I would be able to go. And going to the first age group nationals, and when I was 12, and I was able to make a final in the 400 freestyle against all the 13-year-olds. And it wasn't really like, I still didn't really know that that was good. Like, I I was still coming eighth in my mind, like, I didn't feel like I was competing to be the top of the age group or whatever, even though I was 12 years old. I was a full year, or even more younger than those guys. But then the next year, when my first, or yeah, my at age group nationals in Winnipeg, I was able to get a few gold medals and some medals that I didn't even think I would get. Like, Cindy put me in the 50 back, and I was like, why? I was already swimming like 8 events, and I was so mad Cindy, why would you put me in the 50 back? And I ended up getting a bronze medal. And I was like, and she was like, well, there you go. That's why I put you in it. So um, I never really like, I mean, confidence is something that doesn't come naturally to me. So uh, I relied on Cindy to kind of tell me every day, like, hey, you're doing a great job. Hey, you're doing a great job. And by the time the meet came, I was doing a great job. And then I was happy with how I was performing. And yeah, so it's funny that like my transition from Canmore to kind of knowing that like I guess I was good was a really slow process for me, and maybe some people saw it a bit earlier than I did, but it's yeah, now looking back at it, it was kind of a cool experience, a cool transition for my swimming career for sure.
For sure. And I find that a lot with athletes that come up, like one, it wasn't just that you had an older brother that was also really, really good. It was the fact that you were swimming, and especially in Victoria, there were so many good swimmers that I think sometimes swimmers in those good environments don't realize they're good because it's just normal to have that. That's the way you do things, right? That's just the way of going about your business.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. I had a great group of guys around me. I mean, I was always the youngest one swimming up with kind of the older guys. And once I was 14, 15 years old, they were throwing me in with like my brother, Keegan, Zanata, Alec Page, like a whole bunch of guys that were at the top of their age group and were 4 years older than me. So and Jeremy Bagshaw as well. Like having to see those guys and what they do is like I think really beneficial for me because uh, I knew like I had something to chase, and my brother was by far the biggest motivating factor for me because I would be able to see like, hey, Will went this time in this event at my age. Well, let's see if I can beat that. And sometimes I would, and sometimes I wouldn't. And it was a constant battle back and forth. And watching him swim was like really inspirational for me. And yeah, definitely my biggest like living with someone and knowing what they're doing and being able to learn from him and has been yeah probably the biggest beneficial thing for me in my whole career.
Well, so you made me think of a couple of things. So this is my favorite part because every time you talk, I just have these questions that pop in my mind. So the one thing I wanted to ask you is, do you feel like you had a bit of an advantage or disadvantage over other people who maybe were your age or at your level, like guys you were competing against or competing with when you got to Team Canada junior teams, in the fact that you had a guy who was a couple years older, who was at those higher levels, who like you lived with the guy who was going through that. So you had a bit of a, well, more than you had an inside look of where you wanted to go. And I don't know, did you feel that
Mm-hmm.
was an advantage, disadvantage? Did it take pressure away, add pressure? Like, what was that experience like for somebody in comparison to guys like, well, we talk about James, who you're the same age as basically, and you've competed different events, but James didn't have anybody kind of as a resource. Like, how was that
Yeah.
for you having that in your home?
No, I mean, I consider it an advantage because I never saw it as like pressure to be him, you know? Like again, like sometimes I would beat his times for the same age, sometimes I wouldn't. So he kind of paved a path for me to follow. And obviously, like as I grew older, I was able to kind of figure out what I personally was a little bit better at than he was. So I was able to grow in my own way and also learn from him um, and see what things worked for him that could work for me. So I mean, yeah, James, like he paved his own way through the sport, and
Yeah.
that's like really that's a really cool thing to do. I think you learn a lot about yourself, but I mean, having a sibling that is very similar to you and is definitely beneficial for the just learning how to deal with certain things like this conversation. Like you said, you wanted somebody to learn from the stories that I have. Well, I learned basically pretty much every day from what Will was going through, and yeah, I look back at it, and I see it as an advantage for sure.
Absolutely. Um, so the interesting is that, like you said, you were following, your brother. You swam similar events, but you also had your own thing. Like, I mean, a lot of people might forget sometimes that you were outstanding and ranking really high in your backstrokes as well. Like your 200 backstroke got to a really good level. It wasn't just the freestyles, and you could swim a bit of everything. You were making most of your teams based off the freestyle, but you were a really well-rounded swimmer. But as you're coming along, and I know at times it's natural in a sport. It's like, oh well, that's Will's little brother, right? And you were Will's little brother, but then you kind of carved out your own place, right? And I think, going to juniors and you were winning medals and doing all that stuff, but then having the experience you had of going and competing at Olympic trials as a young 15-year-old in 2012, and then making the junior Pan Pac team at 15 years old, like that's not a normal thing for young men to do, right? So you were really young making those teams and kind of just carving out your own pathway, right? So when you started making those teams, right, and you started to get on the junior teams at a really young age, and then you stayed there because it was 2012 you had junior Pan Pacs, 2013 you had junior worlds, 2014 junior Pan Pacs. I think if I'm not mistaken, you were either the men's captain or co-men's captain of the junior Pan Pac team in 2014,
Yeah,
right?
I was. Yeah.
And you had built your way up to the point where in 2014 you won a bronze medal individually in the 800 free. So just carving out your own name and creating your own identity, I guess, as a Team Canada guy who was on all those junior teams and having all those experiences. How was that for you going through that process through like 12, 13, 14 with all those junior teams and coming out of that machine? Because sorry, I'm asking these long-winded questions, but you were you
No,
you
it's okay.
worked your way by 15, 16. You're like top 8 in the country in your main events. And by the time I think you were 16, I think you were top 6 in the country nationally, like senior seeded. But the top 6 guys were all in your training group,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like you were training every day with the guys that you had to compete with every major meet, and you were
Yeah.
that young guy, but you were holding your own, right? And you surpassed some guys, and you did all that. I'm just wondering that experience, that ride you were on at that point, because you mentioned you weren't a super confident guy sometimes. So how was it? Because on the outside, you just look at this guy who's coming along, he's unstoppable, he's got all this success, he's on these teams. But how was it actually living it for you going through that process as a teenage guy?
Yeah. I mean, I always remember, I think it was World Trials in Victoria. I can't remember exactly one year, 2013 or 14. And
14,
it
I think.
was
Yeah.
like, yeah, and it was like 7 out of the 8 men were in the 400 free were from island swimming. It was
Mhm.
me and Keegan and Will and Eric and Ryan and Jer and Alec, and I think the other one was like Kier or something.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like those are the guys that I look up to and trained with every single day, and having to train with those guys, like it was, and then seeing them is like such a good experience because you get to, I mean, you get to know everybody's kind of tactics and weaknesses and strengths and all that stuff in practice, and then racing those guys when competition time came, then uh, you're able to just kind of know what to expect, and that's what kind of helped me in those bigger races. Like I knew what I was going up against when I was next to Keegan or Ryan. Like I knew exactly what was going to happen, so it didn't really matter. I could focus on my race, and that kind of helped me a lot in terms of just developing my own swimming and developing my own race strategy, because like you simulate what you do, or you want to simulate what you want to do in the race every day in practice. So it's like bringing practice to the race setting. And I mean, like now today it's beneficial because I am able to just focus on what I'm doing. I like, it doesn't really matter what the guy next to me is doing, because I learned from them that it's really just an extension of practice is how you're going to race, what you're going to do. Right. So, um, again, the pool is going to tell you exactly what you did in the following month or the previous months that that you worked hard in. So yeah.
It's an interesting thing. Like we always, for most coaches, we talk to our athletes like, well, don't worry about what the other people around you're doing because you don't know their plan, you don't know their training environment, you don't know what they've done. So get yourself in position at the end of the race. Then it's a race, right? But you got to
Hmm.
set yourself up well. And you guys were coming out of an environment where you were training and you knew the race plan, you knew the training, you knew people's tendencies, you knew who was strong or fragile as they were going into the meet or how their training cycle has been or who's having an issue with this relationship or fighting with their parents. Like, you know, all that stuff being in that environment. So um, did you find it all, like, how was that vibe? Because you go and there's only two spots sometimes on teams and you guys are all vying for the same spot. Like, were you guys able to be a great training group and have that positive environment, support each other, even though you had to go head to head and compete against one another? Like, how was that dynamic with having, I mean, we're all talking elite athletes or high level athletes. So there is that type A personality where everyone wants to win. So what was that environment like? How did you guys cope with that?
Yeah. Like when I was in those finals with those boys, I my goals were never orientated around beating them. They were orientated around making that junior team, making the junior worlds team, junior Pan Pacs team. So if there was another guy that was young like me in that final, that would be who I was more focused on. Um, like the I mean, I can't speak for everybody else, but like I'm sure they saw me as the kind of annoying younger kid who they didn't want me to beat them, but eventually it got to a point where I would beat some of those older guys and even my brother sometimes. So in the shorter events, at least, not the not the longer stuff, but yeah, like it was just a more of a friendly competition thing from my perspective. Like they would push me, and but I had more of a fire to beat the guys that were my own age because I mean, again, they were 2, 3, 4 years older than me, so I didn't really see them as like it wasn't like a soul crushing thing if they would beat me, but I just used them to get better and try and make that situation as positive as it could be. Like, hey, like I know that I got beat by Ryan, which is like not not that big of a deal, or Keegan or Alec or Will, but like uh hey, like this is maybe where I want to be in 2, 3 years time, so or shorter. So yeah, it was a good environment for sure.
No, it's an excellent environment. I'm curious because you talked about one of the things that you struggle with at times was confidence, and um, I know, having had the opportunity myself to spend a lot of time with Randy, I've talked to him a little bit about that. So like one of the little things that he told me about you is that although he'd prefer not to, he'd had to taper you in December because you had to get up and just get that, like, see yourself going fast. And he wanted psychologically you to see good times to kind of build on that confidence as the calendar flipped into the new year, little things like that. Um, so as you progress through with confidence, and I'm going to tell a little story, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but I always like the junior Pan Pac team. It just seems like the 2014 team. I was talking about it, like on paper wasn't considered to be a very strong team, and I remember the chatter about on the team was, oh my goodness, the Australians or the Americans, the Japanese are going to be so good. Um, and then with that team, we just had such a good time. We had a good run. I think we had great captains, we had great teammates, and we had really good coaches. But do you remember the conversation we had? It was on pool deck in Victoria, and it was you, Rob Hill, and James Durgasoff. And the psych sheets for the junior Pan Pac meet had just come out. And I remember you asked the question. You said, well, how fast are the Americans, the Japanese, and the Australians? And I think I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but I said, well, who gives a crap? It's like they put their pants on one leg at a time. Just get up and beat them. And I remember looking at your face. You're like, oh yeah, like yeah, right. And are
Yeah.
you the type of guy that you talked about Cindy maybe, right? And it's like, are you the kind of guy that when somebody just says like, listen, no, like you've got this, or let's be confident, and you hear that positive talk, does that lift you up? Do you find that puts wind in your sails and allows you to get up and go?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I kind of feed off of people, yeah, telling me that I am like positive, like talk, and like I am doing a good job and that kind of thing. Like I know I would annoy Cindy every day, like, hey, Cindy, how was that? Like, oh, like Peter, that was really good. Like, obviously, don't worry about it. But then she kind of figured out, like, hey, like he does need that positive reinforcement, like that positive extra little bit of reassurance, I guess. And I still ask Mike, like, Mike, how was that? And like some coaches, I mean, I've had a lot of coaches over the past 5, 6, 7 years. So it's been interesting to see like the difference in between the support that I've gotten from different coaches. But yeah, Randy was one of those guys who believed in me more than I believed in myself. And that kind of is the bottom line to it. I really needed a coach that believed in me more than I believed in myself, because I again, like my confidence wasn't always there and always high, but they kept reassuring me that like, hey, like what you're doing is good, and they would push me to places that I didn't think I would be able to get to. Um, and yeah, so I think for a lot of young swimmers, it's a really important thing to have that person you look up to, whether it's a teammate, a sibling, your parents, a coach, to tell you like you're doing a great job, and like no matter what happens, like we're supporting you, and that's all that really mattered to me. And I was fortunate enough to have that as a young swimmer.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, like, and because it's not being positive. We're not talking about somebody just pumping your tires and feeding you BS, right? It's like, because
Yeah,
you can tell if somebody's doing that. But that was the thing, is
yeah,
that, and Randy didn't coddle people at all, right? Like he
no,
was hard on you, but at the same time would support you, right? And,
yeah,
and and believe in you. And I think sometimes we misinterpret that as with coaching is like, oh well, you're a soft coach if you're supportive of your, or you relate to your athletes. But because like I'm really supportive with James because he needs that one-on-one talk, but like I'm hard on him. like
yeah,
I'm pretty hard on James. I think I'm the only one who's allowed to. He'll get mad if I say this, but I'm the only one who's allowed to make him cry as much as I do, um, because it comes from a good
yeah,
place. Um,
yeah.
so it is fascinating to hear that. And so I wanted to talk to you and kind of move on to the next stage, because you had a lot of success. You were part of like winning relays at nationals. You're making teams. You won an international medal at Junior Pan Packs, and everything was humming along really, really well. And then we get to the 14-15 season. And so if I'm not mistaken, that was your first year post high school. You had graduated in 2014. And I don't know, did you start school at UVic, or did you kind of hold off
I
and just train?
I did start school at UVic, which I should have probably held off and started training. Yeah, 2014, 2015 season was a bit of a mess for me in terms of like academically and in swimming. I mean, um, academically, I was failing, getting barely scraping by in first year classes. I kind of rode off the study habits that I had in high school, where I would not study and get B's and A's and be fine. But as soon as I got to university, I carried those habits through, and it did not work out for me. I did not know how to study. I did not know how to dedicate the time that I needed to in order to succeed in school. And then on top of that, it was pretty roller coaster of a year in terms of swimming. Being Getting into the National Training Center in Victoria under Randy. It was me, Ryan, Alec, and Hillary, and I was considered to be the next like prospect, I guess, in terms of like making the senior national team and that kind of stuff. So I was really excited to be swimming, and um, then kind of as the year progressed, it slowly started going downhill with like Randy's health. And then trying to make that transition uh, in my training, going back to coach or being coached by Ryan, and yeah, it just kind of uh, my goals in terms of what I wanted to do at the end of the year were kind of thrown out the window by all the situations, all the stuff that had happened to me during that year, which is unfortunate. But I definitely learned a lot from all those situations about just, again, not worrying about things you can't control and trying to control the things that I can, like doing the studying, doing um, the right things that I need to do in and out of the pool, in and out of the classroom. So again, it's not the best scenario. I still deal with having to look at my GPA at the beginning of my academic career, but it's definitely made me a better student and a better swimmer in the long run. So
Well, and it's like whenever you have those struggles, and 14, 15 would be considered probably your biggest struggle year academically, your biggest struggle year from a swimming perspective. But might have, and then obviously on a personal level with everything that occurred with Randy and all that, like there's a lot going on. And as hard as the year was, you could argue that every single thing you went through that year has provided the opportunity for you to learn and become the person you are now. And it was like the starting point of the next version of you. Would you say that's fairly accurate or?
yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, like 2012 was like my biggest breakout year, and I had gotten so like, I mean, I don't want to pump my own tires, but I had developed so much and posted good enough times that I didn't really have to improve all that much in 2013, 2014, 2015 to still be competitive, right?
Mhm.
Still be competitive in my own age group anyway, um, and in Canada. And I kind of let that um, get into my head, I guess, a little bit. I was like, oh, well, even though I'm not doing what I wanted to do, which is really what I should have listened to, I was like, oh, I'm still doing good in terms of men's Canadian swimming at 16, at 17. And my goals really kind of shifted that year because I was like, wow, like I really I really didn't swim the way I wanted to swim.
Mhm.
And um, I kind of listened to myself that time and I said, okay, I'm going to change something because if I'm going to do the same thing every year, it's not going to change. It's just going to repeat the same performance, repeat the same scenarios that I get into that I struggled with. And so going into 2015, 2016, I had a whole new like idea of what I wanted to do. And again, it was trying to build my own confidence to push myself a bit harder because I needed to do that. I needed if to be where I wanted to be in the sport.
Well, and it worked out quite well to the sense like you didn't make the Olympic team, but I think you were second at trials in the 400 free and the 1500 free.
Yeah,
You swam fantastic, which then led you into qualifying. I know you didn't make the team, but you got to go to the short course world championships
yeah,
in Windsor the following fall. So you took a rough, really hard year on multiple levels in 14, 15 and turned it into a really positive, successful year in 15, 16. I think that's a testament to you as a person, just to come back and have that bounce back year and get yourself back on track to where you want to be. But then you were faced a bit with a tough decision, right? Because, and I know there's a few of you guys, and obviously I've got a personal relationship with Rob Hill because I coached him and I've known him since he was a young guy. But you had to get your academics on track, right? So you're at
yeah,
that point. You're 19, turning 20, and you had to make the decision. Like, what do I do? Do I stay in Victoria? Do I continue to train and try to go to UVic where it didn't work out? Do I go to a different situation? You ended up choosing Calgary. What was that process like for you, having to make a decision that wasn't just swimming, but it was also academics and what life's going to be like after swimming? Because that's a lot to weigh at 19 years old. So how was that process for you?
yeah. I mean, it was made easier by a couple of things because, and when I was going into university, going into the 2014, 2015 season, I was considering going somewhere else. I was considering going to Calgary, going to UBC, going to an American school to train. And the reason I stayed was because Randy believed in me, right? I had that connection with him, and um, I was kind of on the brink of trying to make my first senior national team. So I said, you know what, like, next 2 years, I'll wait and get through this Olympic cycle, see what I can do at Olympic trials, and then I'll reevaluate. And I mean, with the passing of Randy and my kind of mishaps in school, and I just never really got involved at UVic because having the training schedule that I did, I would show up for class, go home, eat, swim, go home, eat. Like I was never really at the school getting involved with like other people. I would just kind of like waltz into class, listen, half sleeping, and then go home, right? So I think it was a combination of all of that that helped me choose why I wanted to go somewhere else. And Calgary was somewhere that I really enjoyed going to on my recruiting trip. Mike was very nice to me on the pool deck every single day. And I had quite a few friends that were already on the team. Tristan, who I've known for a while, who's like been one of my best like training partners, roommates, friends, like ever. Like he's a guy that won't even know how much he's impacted me through my, I don't know, last 4, 5, 6 years. So having like that drawing factor to Calgary really helped me also make the decision to move. And I haven't regretted it ever since. So.
Well, that's excellent. And I'm going to go on a limb and say academically things are going far better in Calgary.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, actually kind of moving things around and doing things that I want to do. And yeah, again, learning how to learn, I guess, is the big thing. Learning what works for you. And the same thing in swimming as in school, right? In anything. You're gonna figure out what works best for you. And again, it takes time and dedication, but it's been rewarding to put in the work, and hopefully it'll help me down the road.
Well, and a lot of people don't realize that, or don't even think about it, but like most 17, 18-year-old kids who start university, it's a struggle for them to begin with, just normal
Mhm.
kids. But then you
Yeah,
add on the fact of a 30-hour a week training schedule and trying to compete at the highest level in the world and not getting back from junior Pan Pacs until September 1st. And just a lot of those pieces, there's a lot of extra stress on people. So like what you go through or what people go through is normal. But at the time you're like, oh my God, I'm failing or I'm not doing so well at 18 years old. But it is quite normal, and you see that a lot. Um,
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, I'm just curious. What are you studying? What's your major?
I'm in zoology,
Oh,
so
nice.
yeah, it's a biological science degree, and I mainly focus towards animals and like that, yeah, physiology and anatomy and that kind of stuff. So
That is cool.
yeah,
it's not one I normally get. I usually get the same kind of general answers, right, from swimmers. So
yeah,
that's definitely cool.
yeah. Every time I tell people, it's like, oh, do you want to work at a zoo? I'm like, well, that's not like it's not exactly entirely what that means, but yeah, it's no, it's really enjoyable. I'm glad that like again, Calgary had the zoology program, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. For me, like in terms of school and swimming, like once I have a direction, once I know the destination, it's a lot easier for me to get there versus like, oh, I'll figure it out along the way, you know?
Yeah.
Like if I'm kind of half-assed, like willy-nilly doing something, it's not going to go nearly as well as if I prepare and plan and work towards a goal. So once I enrolled in zoology, I said, okay, like this is what I want to be doing. And it became a lot easier then because I was in just open sciences in a UVic. So I didn't know what I was interested in. Um, and yeah, so once I kind of decided, it makes it a lot easier. And that goes for swimming as well.
So you're a guy who, if you're shown the roadmap and like this is everything you need to do, and it's going to be hard as hell, but if you follow this roadmap, there's your destination, and you can see it. You're like, boom, I've got this. Whatever the work is, I can tackle it, but I need to see the roadmap.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Um, I at the beginning, I mean that this part comes a lot from my dad. Actually, he kind of instilled uh, some habits in me to know what I was doing. Like in the years previous to 20, uh, I think I started doing it in late 2016. So heading into short course worlds, my dad was like, "Do you know how much swimming you're doing every week?" And I said, "I don't know." I had no idea. But uh, like then I started to actually record like what I was doing. So I would I have an Excel thing from that far back saying what I did how far I went every single workout and what worked previous years. And now I have 3 years of data, and that I could say, what worked previous years? What do I got to do moving into the next year? So when I was preparing for this coming Olympic trials, I knew what I had done and I knew I needed to do more. So I calculated it. Obviously, we didn't get all the way to Olympic trials, but I had done over like 1.5 times the amount of swimming going into this trials compared to the year before. And I knew that. And again, that helps me build my own confidence.
Absolutely. So in regards to like tracking that volume and knowing how much you had done, so did you find, well, first of all, you're sounding like a swim coach. Just that's the first thing I would say, because that's the nerdy stuff that we do, but I love it. Did you
Yeah.
find by tracking and assessing it all, did it help you over the last 3 or 4 years to understand more about just the simple math and tracking of the volumes you were doing, and what went into the performance versus showing up and just, a lot of people like, I show up every day and I work hard, and it's like, yeah, you do, but do you work smart, and do you apply your effort in the right way, and are you getting to where you need to get to? Was that something that really enlightened you in the fact that like, okay, like I have to do more, but I have to do it better, I have to do more of this or less of that, just by tracking and seeing it all?
Yeah, definitely. Like tracking the volume is just one piece of it, right? Like, yes, you could be going farther. Yes, you could be doing more, but is it where's the like it's gonna level out eventually. Like doing the extra work is only gonna get you the minuscule amount better when it's all poorly done, right? So it's balancing the amount and the quality, I guess, of the work that you're doing. And I mean, I did the same thing. I said like, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I need to work on in terms of like even like rehab, even just like maintenance of my body, like and like mental preparation. What do I struggle with, and what am I good at, and what can I get better at? And yeah, it's all like a process of taking information from what you've done and applying it to get better every single day.
So on that note, then, you went to Short Course Worlds, and that was your first senior team, um, going to that event, and it was local. It was in Windsor, and then that kind of rolled into 2017. What did you qualify for a team in 2017?
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
That was another thing uh, that kind of, I don't know, I was, I guess, a bump in the road because Tristan, Danica, Rob all made FISU games that year.
That's right. Yeah,
And I was kind of hurt because I came fourth in the tuner free at that meet. I went under 150. I was like 149.6. And I was like, hey, like, I could even make the world's team if they decide to take a relay. And at least FISU. And the cards just weren't in my favor, I guess. And they ended up taking Yuri for the relay, the 4x2 relay.
hmm
And then I didn't even get nominated to the World University Games team. So that was kind of a driving, motivating thing for me, um, going into obviously that summer and into the next years.
well, and I was wondering because you had the short course worlds experience based off your trials performance, but that was now we're talking like 7, 8, 9 months later after those trials. Um, and you when you had that first Canada experience, but then you swam well at trials, but like you said, you missed the team. And the problem with that was that you didn't get an opportunity really to kind of qualify for Commonwealth Games in a sense. Like you did have an opportunity, but it was harder not being at one of those key international meets in the summertime. Whereas if you go to FISUs and that sort of thing, because the Commonwealth Games happened when trials normally did in 2018.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so how was it for you having to kind of wait when, yeah, depending on how they did the selection and there's different things, you could have been on a team, you could have been maybe on the FISU team. Um, like how was it handling that psychologically and then building up and knowing that you had to train essentially all the next season right through till trials in July to go and try to make the Pan Pac squad?
Yeah. Again, like I didn't swim as well as I wanted to in the summer of 2017. And um, if I had swam the times that I did at the World Trials and the FISA Game Trials, I would have made Commonwealth Games.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up missing that opportunity as well. And um, it was kind of, yeah, like looking back on it now, I was at a point where it was like, well, like the thing I love most was to make teams. That's why I did it, to get to travel and get to be with the team and see my friends and experience international level swimming. And if I wasn't making those teams anymore, it I don't really know why I was gonna go through all that, all the training just to not make it, you know. And leading into Pan Pacs in 2018, like again, I didn't swim the way I wanted to swim, but I still ended up making the Pan Pac team, which is really what my goals were at the time. And um, I was glad to represent Canada, and I had like one of the best experiences actually being on the Pan Pac team in terms of like learning about my swimming, but also just experiencing the culture of Japan and uh, kind of being with the team that's like that team was especially like meeting all those people and sort of really good experience for me.
Okay, so I have a couple of follow-ups to that. So the one I have is at any point in the 20 like end of the 2016-17 season, even going through 17-18 all the way up until trials, like at any point did you said the reason to do this is you like to make teams, you want to represent your country, you wanted to go and visit these different locations and compete against the best in the world. Now, is there ever a point where you thought, maybe that's it? Did you ever contemplate or consider stopping or retiring at that point? Did that ever enter your mind, or were you like, no, I just got to stick through the process, it's a bit of a downtime, but I'm going to get there?
Um, yeah, no, I never considered stopping because I mean I wanted to keep swimming while I was in university.
Mhm.
I kind of figured out how to balance the academic and athletic lifestyle. So, I mean, I didn't want to stop swimming just because, yeah, again, like, yeah, one bad season or one bad race. Like, I don't think the whole season was a complete disaster, right? I swam the way I wanted to at trials. I just didn't make the team. And then I
Mhm.
didn't swim the way I wanted to in the summer, but I still had a good trials and I was still enjoying the process and swimming, especially with like at U Sports and the team. Like, so it never really crossed my mind to be done swimming, but it definitely made me think about what goals I wanted to set for the next year. Did I want to just swim CIS, have fun, swim some maybe not distance races, go back to maybe some backstroke, that kind of thing, or go all in and hey, like I don't want to miss another team. I want to make the next senior team. So I definitely thought about that. But yeah, you can't determine one bad meet, one bad race. You like, again, you got to find the positives out of what you did, and it's just the information of what you did and moving it forward and reevaluating where you want to get to.
Well, and I'll be honest, that was a bit of a loaded question because I did note you swam great in 2017 at trials. It wasn't like you had a bad season, but you didn't make the team, right? And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier: is you can only focus on things that you can control. And even though you swam great at trials, the cards didn't fall your way, and you didn't make a team. But the reason I asked if you ever thought about stopping is we know this, and it's typical of the Olympic years. But there are some really, really good swimmers that swam through, and whether male or female, but there's always swimmers who swim well, they miss a team, and they make a rash decision or an emotional decision, like I'm done. And
Yeah.
our sport has a history of people that have walked away far too early, in my opinion, that we never really
Yeah.
got to see them reach their potential. So that's why I wanted to ask that, because I see that a lot. I'm glad that you had the right perspective. Like, no, I swam well. I just wasn't on a team, but I want to do this at a serious level. Um,
Yeah.
so my next question that I had in regards to kind of going through that 2018 summer was, and this goes to a conversation we had. Like I remember we were in Edmonton at trials. I saw you win the 1500 free. Um,
Yeah.
and that's not really true. I saw that you won it, but I was watching my guy racing and getting beat by you in that race. But the end, like, and I know the time, like knowing you and knowing how fast you've been, like the time wasn't really what you wanted. And you mentioned that in your interview, and I talked to you afterwards, just congratulating you. It's like, no, it's not the time, but you did your job. I think I remember saying it to you. You did your job. You're on the team, and that's sometimes doing the job is more important than the time, right? And I think a great example is that
Yeah.
is like, I know Hillary wasn't happy with her time at the Olympics in the 200 backstroke, but she still has an Olympic bronze medal because in the day she got up and she swam, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you made that team and you went, you had that really positive experience. And I know you weren't stoked about how you swam in Edmonton at trials, but then to go and have the the Pan Pac experience that you had, how was that whole process of getting that fire kind of restoked a little bit, get the flame going of being on the senior team again, and or the first time kind of doing a long course senior team, I guess, and then setting you up for the 18-19 season? Like how much did that have a real positive effect on you that summer leading into last season where you swam well and you ended up going and doing the FISU games in Italy and having another positive experience?
Yeah. I like, again, it was kind of like, I think back at it, and it's just like one of the best experiences I've had as a swimmer. Being able to represent Canada internationally at the senior team is, I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that. And I was, yeah, I was looking forward to going into the next seasons and um, kind of building on what I learned. Like I learned quickly that those international guys are on a whole new level than what Canada is currently at right now, and on the men's side anyway. And but yeah, like for me, it was a really good experience. But I I wanted to kind of improve upon obviously what I did that summer and um, get better the next year.
So that kind of runs us through all that, and now I just want to talk a little bit about this season. Um, so the season's going, we're getting ready, and then trials obviously got canceled, and the Olympics, everything got postponed, and these are things that we know. But before we even get to that, a lot of swimmers had their final swim meet in Victoria at U Sports, and
Yeah.
um, for you personally, there's a lot of teammates that you had that was their last meet. There's a lot of people, teammates or friends that are retiring at that meet. Um, and I don't know if that was going to be your last university U Sports, because I don't know about eligibility and things like that. But what was that like? Because I remember getting a photo of all these ex-China swimmers, all these young men that I've worked with throughout the years, and I heard there was a chant of China power that went out, and then there was a photo I got where you're in there with all the China guys, because like you were the
Yeah.
honorary China guy. What was
Yeah.
that experience like? Because like U Sports is, for anybody who's never seen it or been a part of it, is one of the most fun meets you can go to in our country. And if you're swimming at Calgary or U of T or UBC, you're always fighting for that national title. So how was that experience going through with guys that you were friends with and teammates with that you knew they were retiring? Because it just from everything I heard and everything I saw, that seemed like a really, really fun, exciting, good weekend. There was fast swimming all around, and it was just a good vibe.
Yeah, I mean, in one word, it was emotional. Good and like happy, sad, kind of. It was just such a awesome experience. Like having Teddy and Chris's last meet was very emotional for us. Like those are guys that I've been racing with and training with since I was 12, 13 years old, and it's sad to see those guys kind of leave the sport that and you wanted to continue on with. I thought it was only going to be like a couple of months that I had to swim without them, but now it's going to be a whole nother season without them, which is yeah, I'm going to miss them for sure, day in and day out. Like those guys were guys that I depended on to have a good time and to have competition. And like you said earlier, like some people, especially in Canada, leave the sport too early.
Mhm.
Um, and like even in James's case, like I thought we were going to lose James for a bit there. I can't remember if it was last season or something where he took a bunch of time off and we didn't know when he was going to come back or if he was going to come back. And but yeah, that like I have one more U Sports, thankfully. I kind of am lucky enough to have use my 5th year next year. So I was kind of on the fence if I was going to use that or not. But yeah, I mean, those meets are almost better than the big trials and that kind of stuff because the atmosphere is so uplifting. And it's not about your performance, it's about the team's performance and all working towards a collective goal. And some of those guys I'm gonna miss dearly, but I mean the show goes on, and now I have new teammates that are going to be coming in this year, and the ones that are going to be coming or coming back again from last year. It's like it's still a really good group of guys. Like we're a family, right? And um, you kind of live and die together, and um, yeah, so that like having that experience and was just like I'm glad that I get to do it again, you know?
Absolutely. No, it's funny because the final sessions at U Sports are just absolutely electric, right? Because every race has point ramifications and things going on. Like it's a really cool vibe. I love the fact that when I was sitting at home, because well, actually, what a lot of people don't know is during the U Sport weekend, um, my daughter was we were dealing with Children's Hospital and stuff like that, and I was kind of dealing with some stuff, and she's completely good right now, but it was a bit of a dodgy time and I wasn't feeling the best. And then I get these photos of all these swimmers with their university shirts on, but all these swimmers that I've known, I've watched you guys grow up. And then I get the one that you're in there, and I just like, and you kind of, it just brightens up your day a little bit. So knowing that you guys are all there together and having fun, it
Yeah,
put a smile on my face, and we didn't have a lot to smile about at home. So it was pretty cool to see. And just, I think people don't understand the experience of university swimming and
yeah,
what it really does for you.
yeah. I mean, that picture with those guys, like it's it's pretty cool how like a group of people that have swam together and grown up together can like change, like I don't know, it has such an impact on you, right? And I think you have a big part of them being who they are and growing up together. And I I see like Chris and Rob and James and Ben Blackman are like the guys I'm most familiar with, and Nick. But like they obviously came from a group with like so much passion and so much like Rob's the most like fired up guy that I know. Chris is Chris is like so witty, so like big personalities. James is like one of the best like people that I've competed with growing up, and he's probably shaped my swim career like again more than he knows. Having to race him, and like it's really cool to have all those guys on one team being coached by you. And I am glad that I can consider myself self-proclaimed Chino boy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that group of guys is I wish I had been a part of it a little bit more like closely, but again, it's good to have all those faces just light you up even when you're down, right?
Well, I appreciate saying that. It's, the thing that made it a lot of fun and made it easy is that I think my wife said to me one time about those guys is like, Patrick, you're so impatient. I said, I'm not impatient. But then she came and she was a team manager on one of our staging camps with all the boys. And we got through the first day and she said, I'm really, really sorry. I said, why? What are you talking about? She's like, you're the most patient person I've ever met. And the thing was, and this is something that Leanne used to always say I did well with those guys, was just they're such unique individual personalities, and letting them be themselves because they're really great guys was always the challenge, man. Like just letting them be themselves, because some days it was hard. I'm surprised that I haven't had to go on some form of stress leave working with these boys, but they've all grown into really great young men. And I think that's the thing, you got to
Yeah.
have patience, right? People always talk all the time about how do we build our men's program in Canada. Well, patience is the first one. Like our young boys turn into young men, and then they need guidance, right? And
Hmm.
I think you guys are a really good group coming together and working together. So that kind of leads us to where we are right now. So you've already mentioned a little bit, like, I don't know what your original plan was, but now it seems pretty obvious. Okay, well, I'm definitely going another season. And then are you a guy that's going to take it year by year and see, like, I'm definitely in for 2021. When that's done, we'll look at 2022 and beyond, but I'm taking it one year at a time. Are you looking at are you a full quad type guy?
Yeah, I mean, for me right now, I was planning on seeing how this summer went and then, yeah, deciding. Going into next year, I think, I mean, it's kind of hard to say at the moment, but I think I didn't really get closure on this year, so I really wanted to uh, see what I can do next year and obviously try and make the Olympics. But I would assume that it's going to be time for me to maybe hang up the suit and cap and goggles, just because I have other stuff in my life that I want to pursue. This is, I mean, you can't swim forever, obviously, but I mean, there would be a few scenarios where I would consider going back again and swimming, but most likely it's going to be moving towards figuring out what I want to do with the rest of my life. Doing more school, figuring out what I want to pursue as a career, and uh, I mean, I'll always be blessed and thankful that I got to swim for as long as I did. But eventually, you have to move on, and um, I'm almost positive that after the Olympic year is going to be where I kind of make that jump.
So it's almost to go all the way back to something we talked about earlier. It's like next year will be your last dance, right? And
Yeah,
finish it off. Hopefully that you've maybe picked up some good motivation from watching that documentary of just enjoying that process of the final ride as you go through, right?
yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, like I think the thing I mean, that's sticking with me right now, is in the last episode, in the first like 5 minutes, is one of the guys talking about kind of Michael's ability to be present in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, why would I think about a shot that I haven't even taken yet? Right? Why would I worry about something that I can't control? And, and he was saying like people go out of their way so much to make themselves present, and Michael was just able to do that. He was able to just be in the moment and uh, take one step at a time. And I think you got to bring that mentality towards what you do in life as well. Like you never know, next year, like I could I could make the Olympic team and make a final and maybe say, hey, like I really enjoyed that. Maybe I got one more in me. I'll only be what, I guess next time the Olympics rolls around, if they do it in 2024, I'll be 27. So like it's not unheard of to swim for that long. Maybe in Canada it's a bit of a stretch, but there's lots of people that are still swimming that long. And but yeah, I think the most important thing is just be present and do what you want to do and pursue what you want to do. Whether that's, maybe this was the break that I needed to kind of uh, realize that, hey, I want to actually keep doing this and trying to get better and just be the best like swimmer that I can be.
I love that answer, man. And I agree. Like, be present, be in the moment. And, you know, I watched the last episode last night as well. And you just kind of reminded me, it's like, um, why am I going to worry about something that hasn't happened yet? Right. Like, why am I going to worry about a race it seems so simple, but usually the most logical things are really that simple. Um,
Right? Yeah.
yeah. So I love that. Uh, well, I don't want to keep you any longer. I think that I've taken enough of your time today, but I really appreciate you doing this. I do have one last question that I always love to ask any guest that I have on. And I'm going to ask you that question right now is, if you had to go back and talk to yourself at any point in your career, any age, or talk to a young swimmer, and you had one piece of advice, something that you've learned throughout your career that you wish you knew when you were younger, what would that be? What would you say to a young you or a young swimmer?
Um, I think, I mean, in terms of like, I guess, can I have two answers?
Absolutely, man.
If I was telling myself like at 12, 13, like years old, like just use it as a outlet to express yourself and have fun. Like it's, again, you're like, it shouldn't be something that you dwell, like you should be looking forward to going into that next practice, that next meet. Like it's really, you got to take advantage, again, be present in the moment, enjoy those times with your friends and with that group you grew up with, like, because they'll stick with you again for the rest of your life, like that, like the picture we were talking about. As you grow up, like you see those people less and less, like kind of whether you like it or not, right? So eventually like people start going their separate ways, and just be present in the moment and enjoy it. And then if I were to tell myself going into that 2014 2015 season, going freshly out of high school, going into university, I would just say, like, take one thing at a time. Like, don't try and overload yourself with a whole bunch of things, uh, and just really like focus on what you want to do. Because I tried to go into university and try to make the senior team at the same time, and both kind of didn't end up working out. I mean, with obviously other extenuating circumstances, but like, yeah, that's kind of what I've learned since being a university athlete. Is like, just like, and you'll get overwhelmed at times, but just like take a deep breath and do one thing at a time. Like, focus on your school when you need to focus on school. Yes, you'll have to make some sacrifices, but if it's really what you want to do at the end of the day, you'll make it work, and you'll be proud of yourself at the end of it. So
I think those are two fantastic pieces of advice, because those are two really key moments in a career. One, when you're young and you need to enjoy the process and have some fun and not overthink things. And the other one, when you're going to university, is take one step at a time. Don't try to do everything, and like really take your time and pay attention, be present, as we talked about earlier, right?
yeah,
No, I think that's fantastic for any young swimmer. And I think that's important for people to learn and hear from people who have been through it. Uh, I can't thank you enough for coming on, for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. Yeah, just I wish you all the best of luck. You and your family stay healthy, and then I really look forward to seeing you on deck. And I can't wait to see you swim at trials. And I hope you have all the success. And I want to see you racing for Canada in Tokyo next year. That would be fantastic.
yeah. Thanks, man. It was really good to talk to you finally, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this coming year. Looking forward to seeing everyone's face on the pool deck again, and looking forward to finally getting some closure and some uh, performance. See what I can do in the pool. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, excellent. Take care, and we'll talk to you again soon.